Okay, let's keep talking about MLA Works Cited page, but this time let's focus on databases.
Databases are tricky because they collect things from all over the place and put them all in one search engine. So, that article we just looked at from the New York Times, you would find that on a database, which means your reader would need to know where you found it. So you would have to indicate that you found it on a database. But then what's the container? The original website, the New York Times, or the Gale search engine database that you used? Well, you need both. You need multiple containers if you have a database, because there are multiple containers. One container would be the original New York Times publication. The other container would be the database from which you found the article. So, databases will often provide citations for you. I'll show you how that works in a second, but it's your job to make sure they're correct. Don't blame the database if it did it wrong, because all it is an algorithm doing its best. It's your job to know what you're talking about and know how the citation should look to determine if it's correct or not. That's on you. For instance, sometimes it'll add an author where none was listed by the actual source. You need to check that. Sometimes it'll capitalize all of the title. You need to check that. So here's a screenshot of a database article. Now, on here, you get a lot of the stuff we need. Here's the date. Here's the original container, the publisher of the original container. We got a title. I don't see an author listed, so we would skip the author. Now, depending on the database, this next thing is done differently, but they all do it somehow, so you just have to figure it out. For example, this is Gale Power Search, as you can see up here. And on this database, you can either scroll to the bottom or click that Cite button, and it will give you the citation. It looks like this. Notice they skipped the author, as they should, because none was listed. There's the title. There's the original container, the original date. No pages were given. So they have all the stuff from the original container. Now here is the second container. Title of the second container, the URL, and the date of access. So all that stuff is done for you. You can copy and paste this right into your works cited, but it's on you to make sure it's formatted correctly. They did a lot of the work for you. Notice, for instance, that's italicized. The punctuation is correct. They've done a lot of it, but you need to make sure it's correct. Here's another example. Now, for some reason, they brought in the title, and it's a two-part title, but for some reason it's all capitalized. Now, MLA says that's not the way it should look. We want everything to look similar. But the database doesn't know that. So we've got a lot of the stuff we need. We've got author, date, original container, publisher. We've got all that stuff. But let's see what the actual citation they make looks like. So we have the author, just as we should. Last name, comma, first name, period. But in the title, the database capitalized the whole title, and that's really not how it should look. So you would have to go in and uncapitalize all the letters that come after the first letter to make sure it fits MLA style. Everything else looks right. They've got everything we need. URL, access date, everything looks good. But you do need to pay attention and fix things that might be incorrect. Here's an example of what a works cited page would look like. Notice it's in alphabetical order. Notice we've got the title works cited at the top of the page, centered. There's no extra spaces anywhere. Here's an example of a database one. We've got an author. We've got an article title. We've got the original container. There's a volume, there's a number, there's a date, pages, and then we've got our secondary container. That's the title of the database, the URL of the database, and the date we accessed the article on the database. All that stuff is in here. That's what a works cited page looks like. If you run across any questions that you have, or you're just not sure how to do something, Google is a pretty powerful tool. If you Google, how do I do this in MLA, it will give you the answer. Someone has answered that question on the internet. Okay? So you're not helpless. You can find information for yourself. Mindeman out.